Every year in October, artists challenge themselves to draw something for each day of the month. There's always the standard and most well-known Inktober prompt, but over the years, lots of others have been releasing their own alternative prompts. So now, there's a bunch of different prompts for artists to choose from to suit their art styles the best. Prior to this year, I've actually attempted Inktober twice in 2020 and 2022, and failed both times. Conveniently, all three of my Inktober attempts have been compiled into a singular sketchbook, so let's take a look. Starting things off is my first attempt at Inktober in 2020. I followed the regular Inktober prompt, which honestly I found rather uninspiring. Sure, I started off strong on day 1, where I actually freehanded all of the koi fish, but I had started the challenge a few days into October and was rushing to catch up, so the quality fell off pretty quickly. Plus, I had been going through an art block for a few years, so I wasn't really sure what I wanted to draw and how I wanted to draw it. And again, the prompts were really boring. I attempted to use some pens and markers that I had had sitting around, but I was very unfamiliar with the medium, and the paper wasn't the best for markers, so the drawings turned out not great. You can see some of the pages where the marker bled through. However, the two things that I did with pencil turned out not too bad, although one was incomplete. As you'd expect, I wasn't able to complete the challenge. These next couple of drawings are just some stuff that I did afterwards. In 2021, I decided not to follow the regular Inktober prompt. Instead, I attempted Oceaninspace's Cutegirltober prompt, but once again, I started a few days late, still didn't have a grasp on my art style, and as a result, quit after one day. Cause after this drawing of Mai from Bunny Girl Senpai is just this page of random stuff. Now we're going to skip over this huge chunk of my sketchbook to get to my 2022 Cutegirltober challenge, where you draw a cute girl for every day of October. Starting things off is day 1 gesture/circus, for which I drew Tsukumo, who was a circus acrobat in the anime manga series Carnival. You're probably noticing a big improvement in my art, and that's because this past year I finally got out of my slump, drew a bunch, and figured out my art style. I'd love to get into those skipped pages some other time, but for now, we'll just look at my Inktober drawings. Most of the girls that I've drawn are either anime/manga characters, but there are some original characters as well as the girls from my favorite K-pop girl group, Red Velvet. I've included the prompt and the character name on the left if you're interested in knowing that. For day 5 Cyberpunk, I drew an OC whose design I liked so much that she actually makes some more appearances in the next few days. I had a lot of fun drawing this girl for day 6 70s hippie because of her curly hair and the sunflowers. Drawing the individual dots for the center of the sunflower was a bit annoying, however I think the texture looks pretty nice. One huge motivator this year was that Oceaninspace was running a contest where everyone who completed the challenge would receive a free sticker and art print. You would also be entered into a raffle to win a free commission and credit to use at her shop. But I kept my sights on just the free sticker and print. Intrinsic motivations, like wanting to complete the challenge for my own self-fulfillment, are always the strongest, but free stuff is free stuff. Something that helped me complete Inktober this year was planning things out in advance. Oceaninspace had released her list a couple of weeks before October, so I took that time to consider who I wanted to draw for which day and to sketch out my ideas. Then, on the actual day, I cleaned up the sketch and completed the inking. On some days, I decided to do just line art and inking, but on others, I chose to use some colors. I chose to add color whenever I thought that the drawing looked a bit empty or when I was just in the mood for some color. The materials that I used were Pigma micron pens and some Copic markers, although I didn't have many colors to work with because Copic markers are pretty expensive. At first, I wasn't confident with some of the prompts, so I planned to exchange them for that day's prompt from the 2021 Cutegirltober challenge. But I figured that I would have needed to complete the 2022 prompts in order to be counted in the contest, so I scrapped that idea. However, I had already sketched out something for last year's prompt for day 14 streetwear, and I liked it so much that I decided to keep it. The order gets a bit messed up around this point, as the next one is day 16 plaid, for which I drew Joy from Red Velvet. Day 14 will appear at the end, and day 15 will come after day 16 because I accidentally skipped a page when I started on day 15. For day 15, I drew Lane from Serial Experiments Lane in her bear onesie. This is definitely one of the simpler drawings that I did, which isn't a bad thing because it took a lot less time to complete. Around this halfway point, I found myself getting fatigued and producing lower quality drawings. I'm alright with showing this because it's a nice reminder that even though I'm more confident with my art, I'll still have art slumps or bad days. Plus it still counts towards completing the challenge. The next 2 days, I drew girls in striped shirts, which was a great reminder that I still don't quite understand how patterned clothes work. I had a vision for day 14 sporty, but that vision was not quite brought to life because of those damn stripes. Day 20, however, is one of my favorites. I remember Iron Mouse mentioning that she enjoys Lolita fashion, so I wanted to draw her in a cinema roll themed Lolita dress. After my mid-Inktober slump and my striped clothing crisis, finishing up this drawing was just what I needed to pick myself back up. Despite my early strategy of sketching things out in advance, I still fell a couple of days behind by this point because I eventually ran out of my pre-planned sketches. That strategy was helpful during the first half of the month, but eventually I was sketching and inking the whole day's prompt in one sitting. Technically, this character, Hana, is not a girl. In fact, Hana's gender is purposefully left ambiguous in the series. However, they're still cute, so instead of Cutegirltober, cute gender non-specific tober it is, I guess? For day 24, I drew my second favorite magical girl, Akemi Homura from Madoka Magica. If you're wondering who number 1 is, then that's Cardcaptor Sakura, who I've actually drawn so many times in those skipped pages that I decided that I wouldn't draw her during Inktober. Starting with Homura, these next few pages are sort of landmarks that indicate when I felt particularly invigorated to put more detail into my drawings, despite the fact that I was already many days behind. However, I'm particularly happy with how the final stretch of drawings look, so I would say that falling behind was not an issue. Plus, I made the deadline to complete the challenge, so I count it as a win. Day 27 is another favorite of mine. I drew Asuka in her white plug suit and a bomber jacket. I haven't even watched the Evangelion movies yet, but I really like Radio Eva, both the clothes and the figures, so naturally I felt compelled to draw her. Next up is day 28 Decora, where I had a lot of fun using colored Pigma pens and some stickers that I got from Daiso to complete this drawing. I was very heavily inspired by Mika Picasso for the pose, and by Oceaninspace, of course, for the stickers. She's another OC that I would love to draw again, and maybe even give her some more accessories. For day 29, I was actually planning on drawing an OC, but I'd been looking at a lot of figures of Popera from working, and so she ended up in this drawing. Here's the lowest effort drawing that I did, Jeanne d'Arc for day 30 Medieval. I still think she looks really cute, but clearly she wasn't a priority. And for Halloween, the prompt was witch. I was considering Homura for this day instead of earlier, but I really wanted to draw Coco from Witch Hat Atelier. To make it look a little more interesting, I added the diadem herb and the brush buddy that she picked up during her first test. And finally, here's day 14, Yami Kawaii. I wasn't a huge fan of this day's prompt, since some of the Yami Kawaii art that I found for reference had some questionable self-harm imagery. After this is just the page that I used for my marker and color pencil swatches. But other than that, it's a sketchbook completed. Woo! If you'll allow me to reflect a little more about my process this year compared to my previous Inktober attempts, something else that was different was that I was a student before, and now I'm a working adult. As a student, I felt busy with online classes, and studying, and homework assignments, so I found it difficult to dedicate time to drawing every day. Basically, I didn't know when studying ended and when my free time began. Now that I'm working, I have a better understanding of when work ends and when free time begins. Each day during Inktober, I would finish up work, come back home, and draw without worrying about anything work-related. Although I better understand when work ended and when art time began, I definitely struggled with understanding when art time ended and sleepy time began. Because there were many days when I would get home and draw for hours and finish the drawing, and then it was like 2 a.m. on a weekday, and I still had to go to work that morning. Anyways, here's a picture of my participatory prize from the very lovely Oceaninspace. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.